It's delicious, and I love it.
What is it about bubbles? When you put carbon dioxide into even the most ordinary wine, you transform it from a drink into a celebration. A 100 miles east of Paris, just past Euro Disney, is the little town of Épernay. It may look unremarkable and the nightlife somewhat limited. But where else are you offered fizz with your French fries? "25,000 people live in Épernay, and every one of them depends in some way on mixing grapes with gas. This is the heart of the Champagne region. People here are hatched, matched, and some of them even dispatched to the sound of escaping bubbles.
Welcome on board the Bacchus, ladies and gentlemen. We are now in the Avenue de Champagne, the Champs-Élysées of Épernay, where all the most famous names in Champagne are housed, known across the world.
It may not look much, but this is the richest street in France. Beneath its pavements and manicured courtyards lie 1 billion bottles of the world's most expensive wine. The Avenue de Champagne glitters with the most glamorous names in the world of wine. All of this elegance and wealth is derived from the business of putting bubbles into bottles. Life has been easy for the champagne producers. They've hardly had to stray from their salons while making an extremely good living selling the world an illusion. The illusion that champagne is by definition special.
There's always something to celebrate. Good. Exactly. Welcome.
By keeping prices high and by associating champagne strictly with success and glamour, they've managed to convince the world that it's so much more than other fizzes, mere sparkling wines. Behind all these labels is a mixture of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and the cheapest grape, Meunier. But in what proportions is none of your business. It's also a blend of very different areas and years. But which? Producers of other wines may fall over themselves to tell you every last winemaking detail, but the Champenois stayed mum. If pressed, they would say grandly, "Trust us. We make the finest fizz in the world. You don't need to know what goes into it. Just keep on buying the dream." But in the 1990s came recession. Suddenly, champagne drinking began to look extravagant, even obscene. In the cellars of Moet and Chandon, the Goliath of the industry, bottles of unsold champagne began piling up and up. Something had to be done. And this was the man to do it, Richard Geoffroy, whom they're busy making into a star. Geoffroy trained as a doctor before deciding that he'd rather nurse glasses than people. Now he's Moet's Mr. Champagne, the youthful face of fizz, who actually treats champagne as a wine. His first act shocked the cosy world of champagne by laying it all bare, putting on the label exactly what's inside each bottle, including its age. His rivals think he's mad. It means that Moet can no longer palm us off with paint stripper.
Alors là, on déguste tous les éléments, tous les 6 échantillons.
Every winter, though, Geoffroy, with the tasting team, has to live up to his superstar status by choosing which of these tart, thin, still wines will eventually make a delicious, creamy champagne.
Il démarre très doucement, puis il monte assez vite, il reste assez stable, et alors il s'estompe vraiment très, très doucement. On l'a encore en bouche là actuellement. Il est...
La finale est très agréable, le nez est très développé en fin de dégustation.
We are dealing with 200 different growth, different components to be put together. It's really a long, slow process from December through March, and we have to taste every day.
So how many samples might you taste in a session?
20 is fine. In excess of 20 makes it very tiring. It's very demanding. You must keep very concentrated, and I tell you, after 1 hour and a half, you are dead tired. You stop. The only thing you are really asking for is, I would say, food. Good lunch. Good lunch.
Once they've hit upon the right blend, it's bottled with an added dash of sugar and yeast, which ferment all over again, creating an explosive mix of wine and gas trapped inside the bottle. The bottles are then taken down into the cellars to sleep, ideally for years. 65 miles of tunnels have been pierced through the town's underbelly. People think of winemaking as a healthy outdoor occupation, but these men live and grow old in the damp, mould and cold 100 feet underground.
Nous travaillons dans des trous creusés dans la terre, à la manière des rats. Quand nous avons passé 8 heures dans la cave, nos vêtements sont imprégnés d'humidité. C'est l'humidité qui est la plus difficile à supporter puisqu'elle occasionne des maladies rhumatismales et même engendre des rhumes et des rhinites. Le soir, quand nous quittons la cave, nous sommes bien contents de revoir le soleil.
So this means that just in this tiny bit of the cellar, there are 68,400 bottles. Why do you leave all this wine just sitting here?
This is essential. This is essential because it's what achieves really the unique character of champagne, the unique style of champagne. Look at this yeast sediment laying.
Looks rather horrid to me.
Some respect, please. That's what makes champagne. You know, champagne is alive, really. It's slowly developing, building up new characters in contact with the yeast sediment. And I would say champagne is alive because really this yeast sediment was living material. It's what makes champagne sparkling.
So champagne is made in the bottle, in contact with the sediment,
yeah.
the yeast.
This is the essence of champagne.
However vital that sediment, none of us wants it in our glasses, so somehow it has to be removed from the bottle. This is how it's done according to the prevailing champagne mystique. It's called remuage, the gradual shuffling of the dead yeast into the neck of the bottle, which is then dunked in freezing brine, so that quicker than the eye can see, the cap is flipped off and out shoots the deposit in a neat plug of ice. They call it disgorgement.
So that's the traditional method of removing the sediment. By far the most cumbersome operation in the champagne making process. It's hardly surprising then that the champagne industry has been toying with some alternative methods, including these tiny alginate beads. Can you see them? Filled with yeast, they can be added to the wine along with sugar so that the second fermentation takes place in bottle just exactly as normal, except that the sediment is trapped inside the beads. And instead of the labour-intensive remuage process, all you have to do is turn the bottle upside down and the beads fall down into the neck before disgorgement. even less likely to find favour with traditionalists who see this sort of business as an essential part of the mystique of champagne, is this membrane cartridge. Filled with yeast, it can be put into the bottleneck, and it too performs more or less the same sort of function as the alginate beads. Both techniques result in wines which are virtually indistinguishable from champagne made by traditional methods. So why has the industry been so reluctant to introduce either of them? In one word, image.
And image is what champagne is all about. Ridiculous sums of money are spent trying to prevent others, sparkling winemakers, even cigarette and perfume manufacturers, from using the name, often resulting in huge legal wrangles. It's an article of faith for the head of the champagne police that there is confusion when others use the hallowed name.
But there's no possibility of confusion with champagne of deodorant and cigarettes and a perfume. And this perfume itself is a luxury product. I mean, you could almost say it's shoring up your name.
Do you really believe that they are not cashing in our name? I believe they did it intentionally. They used, in fact, the shape of the cork and the name champagne to attract the goodwill attached to champagne.
You see, I think that you harm the image of champagne by seeming to be so litigious. I mean, particularly in the case of this elderflower champagne, where you sued this one-man band making a non-alcoholic product. In Britain, anyway, it seemed like sort of Goliath taking on David.
Oh, yes, I've seen that in the press. Well, we believe it is extremely important to avoid to destroy this patrimony, not only for ourselves, because we are a small product compared with the very many bottles of wine, of sparkling wines produced the world over. Champagne is small, and we try to avoid to disappear. And
well, it's 12%, isn't it, of the whole sparkling wine
yes,
market?
Which is not that much, not that much. And we believe that, in fact, if people try and take an undue advantage of our name, they open a door, and that there will be a time that we will be unable to close the door. And we would destroy this pleasure for nothing, for we have no change. We cannot change our name for another one.
Of all those demanding that the champagne name be protected at all costs, none had been more strident than Moet. So what happened in the 70s was a shock, even an act of betrayal. Guylain de Vogüé is a director of Moet. His father was a giant of the industry.
I was traveling with my father in the United States, and I had just joined the business and joined him. And he was taking me around the country to present me, introduce me. And we were having a meeting in San Francisco with our distributors. My father didn't show up, whereas he was very punctual because he was a former officer. And at 9 o'clock he was not there. At 9:30 he was not there either. So I started to search for him in the hotel. And I found him standing in the middle, right in the middle of a meeting organized by the Wine Institute of California. And I called him and I said, well, Daddy, it's not this room, it's the other room next door, so please come. I said, no, I hold the meeting in my place, I stay here. And in the evening, at the end of the afternoon, he said to me, I want to see you privately and discuss with you. I've had an idea. They make great wines in California, and we should invest in California. So I was just for a minute wondering whether my father had become a little bit crazy.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to Domaine Chandon. My name
Crazy or not, in no time at all, Moet had moved into California and right into the enemy camp by starting up a sparkling wine business.
This is a very exciting time for us because we are going to begin the harvest tonight.
We want you to open a bottle of sparkling wine the safe way. I know it's very tempting to open it up, take the foil off, and just let that cork shoot across the room.
If you're in a small dining room, you can make an impression on someone, but it can't hurt them.
So the first thing that you have to do is take off the foil and then get a towel or a serviette, put that over the top.
Dry your bottle down, completely dry so you can get a good grip. Clean out the punt.
Hang on to it very tightly. And now you want to take that little metal tab, pull it out. You turn it
6 half turns to open.
That is international packaging. It is the only
Thing we've all agreed on.
internationally on packaging. 6 half turns counterclockwise. You turn that.
Pick up the bottom of the bottle, turn the bottle, not the cork.
You don't ever want to turn the cork because then you have to let go every so often.
And as that cork starts rising up in my left hand, I'm just going to press down against it, slow it down, so that I can ease that cork out of the bottle.
As it starts to ease out, just tip it a little bit sideways, let it side, and then you pour.
When you announced that you were moving into California, I mean, the growers of champagne must have been absolutely horrified, weren't they?
Well, the growers, I think that the growers at the beginning didn't quite see if we were joking or if we were really truly serious. But finally, after all, you know, I think that the Champenois people have a lot of common sense, and they realized that it was going to contribute to put champagne even more on a pedestal.
Enter Richard Geoffroy and his baggy pants, the man from HQ on his regular inspection of the troops, who still regard him with some suspicion. This is fizz-making Hollywood style. Big, brash, gleaming. Very few twiddly bits with the hands here. Fully automated VLMs, very large machines, do everything. Machines even pick the grapes, which would be regarded as sacrilege in Champagne. By the late 1980s, Moet had managed to outrage fellow Champenois by setting up sparkling wine operations not just in California, but in Spain, Argentina and Brazil. Its appetite seemed insatiable.
Some people must have said you were shooting yourselves in the foot. I mean, you're exporting all your expertise and your knowledge, and only really to make a commercial rival for champagne.
We knew that the market of good sparkling wines would explode one day or the other.
So it was a very hard-nosed commercial decision. I mean, you saw that the sparkling wine market was going to expand, and you were determined to have as large a share of it as possible throughout the world.
It's always better to be the first one than to be the last one to come into a market.
But you can't stop wicked people like us wine writers lining up bottles and comparing them, and sometimes even preferring one of your non-champagnes to your champagne.
And I know that I shall not prevent you to do this kind of comparative tastings. Honestly, I do the same from time to time in my home. However, if I dare say so to you, I never compare a red-haired girl, a blonde girl and a brunette. If they are pretty, or the three of them are pretty, I like them all.
A very French response, if I may say so.
I don't know what you mean exactly.
The Nullarbor Plain in Australia, one of the bleakest stretches of desert in the world. The drivers who run this dangerous route can go days without seeing a blonde or a redhead. They're paid by the kilometre. No logbooks, no tachograph. And this is his destination, a continent away. The Yarra Valley north of Melbourne, Moet's most far-flung outpost. 1,000,000 miles from the stuffy salons of Epernay, where heat, not rain and cold, is the enemy. "2,000 miles from its starting point, the vineyards on the cool southwestern tip of Australia, the mobile icebox arrives with the world's best-travelled wine grapes. And there to count them in is the ubiquitous flying fizz maker.
Australia is unique. This is the new world. This is the cutting edge. The possibilities for blending are tremendous. We can get the best fruit from the best districts across the continent, wherever they are. Distance is no object. Yesterday, for instance, it took me 700 kilometers for visiting 4 local vineyards in the state of Victoria. And here today we unload Chardonnay from the cool areas of Western Australia, 2.5 days from the winery. And you see, it's quite an innovative approach in the wine world. You know, the fruit is pressed as fresh as it was at the time of picking. And, you know, without offending anybody in Champagne, Australia is more fun, more casual, and I enjoy it a great deal. Damn mellow?
Damn. Damn mellow.
Damn mellow?
Damn block.
Damn wine.
The ones.
Wow. The finish, the length. Good length, huh? Oh, good.
Which one is it?
Je suis content de...
Yeah, the Milo on that one's incredible.
Yeah, so I'm using them. I'm using them this
It's
way.
holding very nicely. Yeah.
It's technology, huh?
We're trying to make an Australian sparkling wine style from the traditional varieties Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier that really is a sparkling that's second to none in the world. This means it stands up beside champagne. Now, of course, because we are growing the grapes under our conditions in Australia, it reflects our growing conditions. So I suppose you could put it this way. It stands on a pedestal as high as champagne, but is, of course, different to champagne.
He's right. 7 out of every 8 bottles of fizz sold nowadays come from outside this extremely self-conscious, even paranoid region, Champagne. And Richard's broken new ground for a Champenois by admitting that they certainly aren't all bad. I reckon that in general, sparkling wines made the same way as champagne, which say traditional method on the label, are better value and more reliable than champagne itself. Young, cheap champagne is probably the most overpriced wine in the world, selling only on its heavily protected name. But then my desert island wine is the best, subtle, dense, long-lived champagne that won't ever be matched, because nowhere else, except perhaps England, has the same combination of lousy climate and chalky soil. So what is it about grapes and gas anyway? Surely it isn't just the fact that carbon dioxide gets alcohol into the system faster. At home in Champagne, Richard Geoffroy proves that, whatever his winemaking skills, he's a rotten cook. This cosy domestic scene is rare chez Geoffroy. In fact, he spends more time overseeing Moet's burgeoning empire than his real-life family.
Wow, voilà, you see that all year round. It's quite a busy schedule.
So you're
6
involved
months a year, I would say.
6 months a year you're away.
Yeah.
So when do you get to see your 3 sons, for instance?
There is another 6 months left. It's enough. Yeah, we enjoy it. Yeah.
You don't resent all that travelling?
No, not yet.
And how does your wife feel about it?
Well, I never ask.
Dear. Well, now, if we can wrest you away from your sons, or your sons away from you, we're going to turn the tables on you, and we're going to make you do a blind tasting of all the sparkling wines you're involved with making, okay?
Wow.
So you have to tell them apart and tell us how you know which one's which.
Yeah. We have a go. Okay, fine. Thank you. Good. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, Richard, off you go.
Well, wine number one. Yeah, nice copper amber hue. I would say it suggests Pinot Noir. This is Pinot Noir. Overt, good punch.
So where does that tell you it comes from?
California.
Punchy California.
Yeah, overt, upfront Pinot Noir.
Okay, well, you go on to the next one and I'll let you know if you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Well, another expression of Pinot Noir, because Pinot Noir got really various expressions. This is the Australian expression of Pinot Noir.
Sure.
More delicate, a bit less varietal, more development. This is Australia.
You are right.
Very different. First, the color. It's more the golden color of a Blanc de Blanc, a white grape sparkling wine. This is Spain. I tell you, this is Spain. The aromas, it's so typical Spain. It is quite variable. That's floral, delicate floral character to it.
And that's different. It's not the same grape varieties, is it, that you use for champagne?
Now, the local, traditional grape varieties, and I would say the overall the wine is lighter and fresher.
This
is Spain.
So the final one has to be.
It has to be. This is champagne. It's quite complex on the nose. There's a nice biscuity, honeyed floral characters, and the palate is very complete and I would say complex again. Super balanced, soft champagne.
And do you have a favourite?
No, you know what? I don't. Well, on one hand, I could tell you that my favorite is champagne. But it is because of my, of my roots. I'm a champenoise. I love champagne, but still. It's like a family. You have kids, and it's difficult to say you have a favorite kid. You like them all, love them all for different reasons. And I feel the same about all those sparkling wines. I love them all. They're great. The kids, the babies. Voilà, c'est la famille.